I stopped tolerating anything less than what I knew I was capable of. And that meant that I had to start saying no to a lot more than I was used to. It meant, for me, ending relationships that drained me. It meant cutting ties with people who didn't have the same vision of excellence in my life and in my business.
The old business paradigm is crumbling before our eyes, and the world needs high-achieving entrepreneurs who are ready to break the mold. Welcome to the Epic AF podcast, where groundbreaking, paradigm-shifting change is the only option. If you're done with standard methods and you're ready to disrupt, then you are in the right place. I'm Kelly O'Neill, an award-winning brand strategist, visionary leader, and unapologetic entrepreneur. This podcast is more than a show. It's a hub for big thinkers, the disruptors, and those that are ready to shatter outdated expectations. Subscribe now, and let's rewrite the rules of entrepreneurship together.
Hey everyone, I want to welcome you back to another episode of the Epic AF podcast. I am your host, Kelly O'Neill, and on today's episode, we are going to dive in on what it really takes to be Epic AF. I am going to share my own personal story of my moment of clarity, and I'm going to tell you and introduce you to the number one thing that you need to know if you are going to transition your mindset and your life and your business to be Epic AF. So this podcast is exclusively for visionary entrepreneurs and the service providers that serve them who want to shatter the status quo, create an epic life and an epic business. Let's dive in. So I promised you guys transparency on this podcast, and that's exactly what you're going to get. We are going to start with the moment that I hit rock bottom, because it is something that I will never forget. It wasn't actually when I realized that my business was going under. And it wasn't even when I had to admit to myself that Kelly O'Neill could not pay the bills. Nope. The moment that I hit rock bottom was, for me at least, it was far quieter and it was more personal. So I remember that I was sitting alone in my living room and I was looking at this representation of a life that I had built with all the wrong pieces. The business that I had literally thrown my heart and soul at was gone. And along with that went my financial security, my confidence, and frankly, a big portion of my sense of self, right? I had spent so many years hustling and grinding and doing what I thought was right. And that really coming to that moment where there I was, insolvent. And I wasn't really sad. I was fucking furious. Furious. Not just at the situation or not at the people that contributed to this, but really, I was furious at myself. Because deep down, I kind of knew at some level that I had been settling in so many areas of my life. So many areas of my life, not just my business, relationships, my weight, my health, so many areas. And I had been living in a way that it looked good on paper, but it really kept me trapped in mediocrity. And even though it didn't even matter that I had all of these grand goals and I had these big ideas that I had for myself, my life did not reflect my potential, right? That powerhouse that I knew that I could be, that visionary that I was designed to be, right? That I was literally destined for. Instead, it kind of reflected a watered down version of someone who talked a big game, but was forced to play by the rules and that followed advice that wasn't aligned with her true genius, right? Like, I even talk about it in the third person because it's like who I knew to be inside of myself was not who I saw in the mirror. It's not what was reflected out in the public or even in private. It wasn't like I was trying to run a sham or it was that I had like sold myself into that. And in that moment, and I remember it, I remember how I was sitting, where my dogs were. It hit me like a lightning bolt in that moment. And the realization, it was like a ton of bricks. And I knew that I could not afford mediocrity anymore, literally or figuratively, right? The mediocrity that I had subscribed to willingly was a slow death. It had cost me my business. It had drained me of my energy. And despite whatever it looked like to everyone else on the outside, it left me a life that felt painfully small. And if I was ever going to build something epic, right? Something that made the impact and allowed me to really live fully, I knew that I had to stop tolerating anything less in all areas of my life and business. The truth is that we all tolerate mediocrity in our lives, whether we admit it or not, right? We let things slide. We accept relationships or habits or standards that just really don't serve us. We settle for business deals that aren't ideal because we're afraid of what will happen if we don't, right? We compromise. We tolerate shitty personal relationships and team members who do not deliver. And I had done that for so long. In fact, obviously too long, convincing myself that it was like just a part of the journey, right? Like no one's perfect. I was giving myself grace because I just thought, well, this is the journey of the entrepreneur. This is just life, right? Because that's what they tell you. I'd followed that traditional playbook to success like a soldier, right? I mean, I was all in. I had the coaches and I was like, they must know better than me because they are further along than me. And I had done that and conformed, even though like, as I was doing things, either in my life or in my business, and as I was doing these things, I was thinking to myself, it just doesn't feel right. Something's off. But I wanted to be humble and I wanted to listen to other people. And I had done all of these things and it led me straight to failure. And that's when it became clear to me that if I was going to require excellence from the people around me, then I was going to have to start with myself. No more bullshit. No more pretending that things were fine when they weren't. No more good enough. I had to shore up every single corner of my life. And that started with getting brutally honest about where I had let things slip. Because it wasn't just my business that had collapsed. I had let, in this pursuit of success and keeping up with the Joneses, in fact, not even keeping up with the Joneses, I wanted world domination, right? I wanted to surpass the Joneses. My health had taken a backseat. My relationships were strained. I was living in a constant trauma response. My nervous system was shot. And my mindset had been on autopilot for so long, longer than I wanted to admit. I was holding on to people in my life who, frankly, those relationships, they did not serve me. I held on to habits that drained me and a lifestyle that kept me from stepping into my true power. And if I was going to have to rebuild this time with intention and purpose, I had to start living and I had to start rebuilding it from the ground up. Like I had to level it. I mean, it was pretty much leveled anyways at that point, but I had to really start at the ground up. And that meant that I had to take a hard look at everything I'd been tolerating and deciding that I just wouldn't anymore. And the hardest part about that wasn't even realizing that things needed to change. What the hardest part was realizing that I needed to change. I could not point the finger at my failed business. I could not point the finger at the bad advice that I had followed or the people that had let me down or screwed me over. It was all on me. If I was going to rise above mediocrity, I had to do the uncomfortable work of shoring up my own life and my own standards and my own healing and my mindset. And I remember sitting there in that moment, and it was a little surreal, and thinking to myself, that's it. It's got to change, right? And that's when I made a vow to myself that there would be no more half measures, no more settling. And from this point forward, everything that I touched would be aligned with excellence. From my relationships to my business to how I showed up in the world. Because the truth is that you cannot demand greatness from others if you're not holding yourself to that same standard. And it sounds simple enough, right? Like, just decide to be better, right? Like, okay, it's like you go to one of these rah-rah seminars and that's it. I'm gonna decide to be better. But let me tell you, it's a lot harder when you're staring down the wreckage of a life that you thought, and I really did, I believed it was working. Like I had sold myself into it. It wasn't like I was thinking one thing and then putting on a front. I had fully sold myself that I was doing the right thing, that I was playing big, and it was all working until it wasn't, right? And when I made that decision, I didn't have any magic formula. I didn't have a playbook. All I had was I've got chills right now. All I had was a deep gut level knowing that if I didn't change, nothing else would. And so I started with me. I got clear on who I was at my core and what my divine purpose was. I got clear on what my actual genius was. And I got clear on what I truly desired from life. Again, not what someone told me that I should desire. What I actually wanted, right? Not what looked good on paper, but what my soul craved. And when I got that clarity, I gave myself permission to be unapologetic and to demand more from myself and from everyone around me. I stopped tolerating anything less than what I knew I was capable of. And that meant that I had to start saying no to a lot more than I was used to. It meant, for me, ending relationships that drained me. It meant cutting ties with people who didn't have the same vision of excellence in my life and in my business. It really meant restructuring my life on every level, my schedule, my habits, my entire way of operating to reflect the kind of person who would never settle for mediocrity again. It also meant getting really comfortable with immense discomfort. Because let me tell you, when you stop tolerating mediocrity, or at least this was my experience, you're going to start living at a higher frequency, right? And this is going to shake shit up. People who were once comfortable with you start to not feel so comfortable. And in some aspects, like you will see people start to become jealous. They will feel threatened. They will ghost you. It changes, right? Situations that you might used to have been able to navigate easily start to feel tight because you are outgrowing them, right? That's the beauty of it, right? Growth isn't supposed to be comfortable, right? It's not supposed to feel like a comfy, warm blankie, right? That's not what it's supposed to feel like, right? It's supposed to challenge you. It's supposed to push you and force you to really level up, because nobody is really, when you're in the thick of it and the shit's hitting the fan, no one's like, this feels great and I just want more of it, right? Like when things are falling apart, it doesn't feel good. But here's the deal. That's where the magic happens, right? That moment that you stop tolerating mediocrity and you open yourself up to something so much bigger. You start living with intention, right? In alignment with your values, and you start making decisions from a place of power and purpose, not from fear or obligation. And when you do that, my experience is that the universe responds in kind, right? It didn't happen overnight for me. Let me just be clear. It did not happen overnight. And it sure as hell was not easy. But slowly, things started to shift. And the right people started showing up in my life, right? People who are aligned with the same values of excellence. My business ideas took on way new clarity. And the opportunities, guys, that came my way were ones that supported my vision instead of draining it. The day that I decided to no longer tolerate mediocrity was the day that I started to become unshakable. It was also the day that I started to become unfuckable with, right? Because if you take nothing else from this podcast, take this. Mediocrity is a choice, and epic AF is a commitment. And if you want to live and run a business and have the experience of being truly epic, you're going to have to make that commitment. And it starts with you, right? So for those of you who are ready to embark on this journey, it's time to stop accepting good enough, right? And it's time to start building something just really extraordinary. Because let me tell you, once you start to raise your standards and you refuse to settle for anything less than what aligns with your highest purpose in this world, everything in your life changes. You do not have to hustle harder. You do not have to follow the herd. You do not have to beg for success. You don't. You just have to become the person who demands and embodies epic. And that, my friends, is where the real power lies. So let's get epic AF, shall we?